Hi there, I'm Winifred, tarot reader, intuitive healer, and magical maven of AwenTree, the magical hub for the seeker. In this video lesson, I'm going to be talking about my favorite tips that I wish I knew when I first started reading tarot. So tip number one is that you must be given your tarot deck, that you can't go out and buy it for yourself. This is a really huge myth surrounding tarot and very popular. You hear it all the time. I'm here today to let you know that you do not have to be given your tarot deck. It is absolutely okay to go out and buy your own deck and get started reading tarot. A lot of times what you'll hear is that if you are not given your tarot deck, it somehow won't work for you or that the readings won't be valid. That's just not true. Well, it's awesome to be given your tarot deck. Who doesn't like to get tarot decks as a present? I know I do. But it's not true that you have to wait to be given a tarot deck to get started working with the cards. If you had to wait around, what if you're in an area or a life or community where people don't know about tarot, or perhaps maybe tarot is still a taboo, and so no one close to you would be able to give you a deck or even know that you would want one, then you're waiting around to get started working on an incredible spiritual tool that brings so much richness to your life. So I'm here today to tell you that with tarot cards, it is totally fine to go out there and get your own tarot deck, especially if you're in a situation where there isn't anyone around you that knows you're interested in tarot or supports your interest in tarot and is able to give you a deck. And another point I want to make about the importance of being able to go out and get your own deck has to do with being sure you get the right deck and about experimenting with more than one deck. If we are waiting for someone to give us our deck, it may take forever to happen or never happen, and two, who knows if you'll get a deck you really connect to. So it is totally okay to go out and get your own deck because you're more likely to pick out a deck for yourself that you really connect to the energy or the images or maybe the cultural or spiritual principles that are imbued in the deck. So the part about picking out your own deck is making sure you get a deck that's really in alignment with you and that really speaks to you, which ultimately helps you do better getting started reading the cards. It's important to connect to the deck that you have that you're working with. So another point around getting your own deck is that you're more likely to get the right deck for you. Okay, so tip number two, you can't read tarot for yourself. This is a really popular myth, and let's just bust that right here. You absolutely can read tarot for yourself. You hear a lot about people struggling to read tarot for themselves, and I think there's a few reasons for that. I think that it is not a great idea to read tarot for yourself if you're reading when you are feeling very upset, if you're in a situation or crisis, if you are really close to the nature of the subject that you're seeking guidance on, then yeah, it's not really a great idea to read tarot for yourself. But if that isn't the case, if you've had some time to get some distance or space from a situation you want to look at, I absolutely think you can totally read tarot for yourself. If you're finding that you're in a crisis situation where you're really upset about the nature of the reading, yeah, then it's time to reach out and get a reading from someone else. But by and large, it's totally fine to read tarot for yourself, and I actually encourage it. Another thing that I think this comes up is that sometimes people struggle to get clarity when reading for themselves. So I think that's partly why this myth has evolved about one shouldn't read tarot for themselves. But actually, I think that it's really important to read tarot for yourself. That's how you're going to really develop an understanding of your deck, the cards, what I call the language of tarot. So you absolutely definitely want to be reading tarot for yourself. There's no reason why you can't. I would encourage you to maybe stick with just one or two decks if you're working with tarot and reading for yourself and you're new to it. And sometimes I think it's better to stay with a very simple spread, like just single card spreads. However, you can totally read tarot for yourself. So let's just bust that myth right here. You're definitely going to want to pick subjects that you're not feeling too emotionally charged about. And I would keep it simple, like a single card spread, like just pulling one card. But you definitely can read tarot for yourself, and it's really important to helping you feel comfortable and confident connecting to the cards, getting to know the language of the cards, and getting familiar and connected to your deck. So yeah, let's bust that myth. So tip number 2 is you can totally read tarot for yourself, and you should. It will help strengthen you as a reader. Okay, so this brings us to tip number 3. Don't get really hung up about knowing the official meanings of the cards. So honestly, it takes what I consider a lifetime to really master knowing all the messages and meanings that are available in the cards when we are working with them. And that's not to put you off or overwhelm you, but remember, when working with tarot, I always say it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so don't get too hung up on, I don't know all the meanings of the cards. That's okay. It's more important that you just get using and working with your tarot deck. I always say the tarot doesn't do you any good sitting in a box or in a bag on a shelf or tucked away somewhere. Tarot comes to life in your hands. So my tip number 3 is that it's more important you just start where you are. Just begin. Don't get too hung up on the official meanings of the cards. Yes, you're going to be spending time over weeks, days, months, years, even a lifetime learning the meanings of the cards. I got my first deck when I was 16, and trust me, it's many years later, and I still am picking up new ideas and thoughts around meanings of certain cards. That's just the beauty and neat wonder of tarot. So you're always going to be spending time adding to your knowledge base, your library of knowledge around the cards, but it's okay to just start where you are. So you're going to set time aside to be studying and learning those official meanings, but you're going to give yourself permission to start using the cards right away where you are today. All right, so that's my tip number 3, is that don't get too hung up on how confident you feel about the official meanings of the cards. That comes with practice and over time. You can still just pick up the deck and start working with it right away. And the second side of this tip about not getting too hung up about whether or not you know the official meanings of the cards is, as you are building your knowledge around the meanings of the cards, don't be too rigid. I see a lot of readers hold themselves back or stumble when they become too rigid or locked into the official meaning of a card. So you put all this effort and energy and you start to feel kind of confident about knowing a meaning of the card, but you also still want to stay loose, stay flexible. I really do see readers kind of get derailed if they are too rigid in the definition of the official meaning of a card versus being open to just receiving the first impressions and information and insight that might be speaking to them in a card in any particular moment. So while we want to respect and honor the knowledge of the cards, we also want to stay loose and flexible and open to new ideas or thoughts or impressions or information coming to you in a card. So remember to stay loose on it, right? Stay open-minded. So we honor knowledge and we're working towards it, and we respect that that's an ongoing process, but we give ourselves permission to start using the cards right away, and we give ourselves permission to stay flexible and loose in the interpretations to some degree, right? And also this kind of wraps this tip up with be kind to yourself. Like, I see people be so hard on themselves. So remember to be kind. You are in a process of becoming and unfolding. You're learning a language. So be gentle and kind and stay flexible and open-minded and grounded, right? And so that's tip number 3. Don't get too hung up on how much you know and don't know around the official meanings of the cards, and keep flexible in your journey of learning. Okay, and so that brings us to tip number 4. And this is really just go for it. Just do it. So tarot, like I said, doesn't do you any good sitting in a box or in a bag stuck on a shelf getting dusty. Tarot comes to life in your hands. So tip number 4 is to get going, get working with your tarot cards. Give yourself permission to try. Think of it as exploration and experimenting, and give yourself permission to fail. That's okay. You're not really failing. think of the phrase fail forward. So you're not really reading unless you're reading and failing to some degree. I used to climb, and we always said you're not really climbing if you aren't falling. So you have to push yourself and grow past your comfort zone. So in order to really get learning with the tarot, one of the things I wish I had known was that it was really okay just to do it, just to practice, just to give readings to myself, to give readings to my friends and family, and to give myself permission to go for it and just go with the reading however it's coming to me, and just accept the reading in those early stages. Sometimes you're going to be really on, and sometimes you're going to feel like you missed a little bit or that you fell flat on your face. That's okay, because you really, all of it is adding to your knowing box. It's what we call failing forward. So you just want to keep doing and keep growing and keep trying. But if you are too scared to make a mistake or do it wrong and you never do it, you're not going to get further down the line on that journey. So tarot really is a journey, and like I said, tarot cards come to life in your hands, and so you want to encourage yourself and give yourself permission to just go for it. Get reading, start reading for yourself, reading for your friends and family, and be okay with the outcome in the beginning. Over time, you will see that you will grow and that your readings will become more accurate and more relevant, but you just have to push through and grow through those initial stages in the beginning. So I'm giving you the permission that I wish I had gotten right away when I was way back a teenager. I'm giving you permission to just go for it and just do it in all its beauty and grace and stumbleness. That's not even a word. It's okay. It's not really failing if you miss a little bit when you're first starting out reading. It's failing forward, and it's all adding to your knowledge and your journey and rounding you out ultimately as a reader. So I'm giving you permission here, stamp of approval. Just go for it, get going. So that's tip number 4, is to bring your practice to life and get doing it regularly. Okay, so I've shared with you some of my top tips that I wish I had known when I first started reading tarot, and my wish for you is that this is gonna put some wind in your sails, get you empowered and inspired and working on your tarot journey. I thank you so much for joining me here, and I look forward to connecting with you more in the future.